The hits keep coming for CNN's new CEO, Chris Licht. The network just experienced its lowest ratings in 9 years across all its day parts for the week of January 16th through January 22nd. And according to Nielsen, it averaged just 440,000 viewers in prime time. That makes it the first time since May 2014 that the network failed to reach 450,000 viewers.
During that same time frame, for primetime, Fox News had 2 million viewers, 256,000 in the demo, and MSNBC had 943,000 viewers, 91,000 in the demo. So those are terrible numbers for them. And there was some more news with CNN I was just catching up on. Apparently, they are adding Bill Maher, sort of, to their lineup. So on Friday nights, Bill Maher's show airs, you've been on it, I believe, Real Time with Bill Maher on HBO. So that airs, you said, at 10 p.m. And then there's an overtime segment. They produce extra content. Again, I think you, Batya, have actually participated in this. That's going to be airing now on CNN at 11:30 p.m. So very interesting. Obviously, that's not a lot of new content. Probably they're looking at him or someone they like, Bill Maher, to maybe take a regular position, maybe the 9 p.m. slot, which they haven't filled yet. It sounds like Chris Licht is interested, perhaps, in having a comedic persona, maybe looking with some envy at Gutfeld's success on Fox, which is just doing massively big numbers. So interesting nonetheless.
Yeah, it's very interesting because I think, part of what Chris Licht has been trying to do is to get CNN back to the center. So, in the Trump years, there was very much this perception that a lot of the sort of personality-driven content, which was encouraged by Jeff Zucker, the former CEO, had sort of driven CNN in the direction of MSNBC, which, of course, during the Trump years was very profitable. But then, they had been seeing this sort of drop-off of ratings. People, I think, felt, why would I come to CNN for what I can get at MSNBC, right? So Chris Licht has been very much trying to get CNN back into that sort of balanced center. And it's very interesting to see him turning to Bill Maher as somebody who represents that, both a comedian and somebody who is very staunchly a liberal, but has very little patience for the sort of woke excesses, right? So I think in that sense, it's, that might be where what he's thinking, right? This is not somebody you could accuse of being a Trump voter or a Republican. Bill Maher obviously hates both of those things with a passion, but somebody who represents kind of that centrist, blue dog, Dem feel that I think a lot of people see as lacking in the public discourse right now.
Or even just independent or objective sentiment. I think one gets the sense with Bill Maher, like him or dislike him, I think he's pretty funny. I agree with a lot of his views, not all of his views. He did describe himself as sort of a libertarian at one point, and I definitely see that represented in the things he talks about. But I think he's someone that, he's going to tell you what he thinks, and it's not going to be boring, and it's not going to be necessarily predictable or necessarily aligned with pro-Democratic narratives or pro-Republican narratives, and that's really refreshing, and is probably what people were looking for out of CNN, or used to look for at CNN at any rate, and before it just became, as you said, indistinguishable from MSNBC, very so critical of Trump and Republicans without having any kind of balance in the perspective, something Chris Licht wants to move away from. So I totally see why he would turn to a Bill Maher type person. I think that would make a lot of sense.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think, with Gutfeld, what you have is, I've been on Gutfeld. I love Gutfeld. When I'm awake that late, I like to watch it. What you get on Gutfeld is a lot of the heavy hitters kind of letting their hair down.
Yes.
So it is a very political show. It's very tied to the news of the day, but you get people in a different kind of context, and there's just nothing really like that on the left or on the center left, except Bill Maher's show, Real Time. And the great thing about Real Time is that he usually tries to have, I think, a conservative and a liberal. So to have a space on CNN that's committed to debate, committed to hearing from both sides, committed to a less kind of uptight and more relaxed debate feel, the kind of TV that was like de rigueur in the 90s, right? The kind of thing that you could turn on really pretty much any channel and hope to see. I mean, I think this is a really smart move.
What you get from Fox is a lot more just entertainment almost, I think, than CNN or MSNBC. You say they're still, responding to the news topics of the day, and they absolutely are. But there's just also a lot of, when I watch The Five, or when I watch Hannity, or when I watch Jesse Waters, there's just a lot of stuff that I wouldn't have necessarily heard about yet if I was just following, what are the headlines of the day. They want to inform, but they want you, they want you to enjoy listening to it, where it's much more relentlessly focused, I think, over at CNN and MSNBC on, okay, what was the big story of the day? Okay, it's the classified documents being found in boxes. So we got to talk about that all day, even though that story's kind of boring and there's not a lot to it. I think they feel more beholden to that, and it shows in the model that that's not as successful. I know on our show, right, we talk about what we think is important. We feel obligated to inform viewers about what the big stories are, but we also just talk about a lot of things they're not going to hear if they watch elsewhere. We're going to dig into COVID, Pfizer. We're really digging into tech stuff and the Twitter files. That's not getting any coverage in mainstream places, and I don't think it's getting necessarily the very thoughtful, balanced coverage we're giving it in where it's being covered in right-wing media. We do that. I don't feel obligated to talk about every wrinkle in, again, the boxes of classified documents, which apparently everyone has because things are overclassified, and it's not that interesting. I don't think viewers find it that interesting, and I don't either, so we just talk about other stuff. I think that's a better model, frankly.
Yeah, and I do have to say a shout out to Fox, because those shows you mentioned, they all have liberals on them. There's a spot on the Five, one of the five, the fourth, is always a Democrat, is always a liberal. Harris Faulkner has her power panel. Outnumbered is usually all conservatives, but you routinely turn on Fox and you will see people from the other side, and you really have ceased to see that as much on the liberal networks. It's very, very rare that you'll have a Republican, and certainly almost never that you'll have somebody defending Trump, or who's in the Trump camp, or who understands where Trump is coming from and is willing to defend him. So I think that is really, if I could talk to Chris Licht, I would say bring back debate. Because that's what Americans want to see, not because they want to see one side win or the other, because they want to see the choice that they have before them in the form of the two parties. And, the two-party system gets a lot of flack. But at the end of the day, if you compare our media to Canadian media, our media to British media, our media to German media, because we have that two-party system, we have a real robust showing of how conservatives think, and they are half of our nation. And it is extremely important that even if you're not in that camp, that you know how your fellow Americans feel about things, because they deserve to have a say. So I would really want to see more of that at CNN. I think that would help their ratings a lot, and I think Bill Maher is a great step in that direction.
Fox has Democrats all the time on Fox, and they grill them. And they grill Republicans when they have them on. I was watching Fox and Friends the other day, and they were grilling J.D. Vance on his Ukraine views, and he was advocating a more kind of non-interventionist line, which is somewhat in line with what I think. And they were really trying to probe his thinking. Well, if we do this, won't Russia do this? It was a lot of pushback. I think that's healthy to see. It's not just like, well, Republicans can go on Fox and only get flattered and praised and have an easy time of it. There are a lot of reporters there who hold their feet to the fire, just like they're holding Democrats' feet to the fire. So it's very interesting.
100%.
We'll have more Rising right after this. Stay with us.